Good? Awesome. Okay, I'm timing this just so I can keep on track and everything like that. Okay, so, anyways, everyone knows who I am, Alec. I'm doing anesthesiology. That's what I've been studying right now. For my PowerPoint, or my presentation, just compiled kind of a list of all the interview assessments and research assessments, kind of talked about the high points, what I learned, and then talked about like my original work and things like that. So for my quote over my whole kind of experience, I found one from Vince Lombardi, basically saying the price of success is hard work, dedication to the job at hand, and the determination that whether we win or lose, we have applied the best of ourselves to the task at hand. To me, this quote really kind of represents who I am. I love a challenge. I love waking up every morning and feeling like there's something new going on. So that's why I feel like anesthesiology is a great fit for me, because it's always something new. You rarely ever see, two cases that are the same. Usually something different is going on. And I just think that overall this quote means that as long as you persevere, as long as you work hard, then there's no way that you can fail. And my mission in ISM is to gain a high level of knowledge in the field of anesthesiology through the guidance of a mentor. My mentor is Dr. Ari Fleshman. He is a board-certified anesthesiologist and general practitioner for about the past 15 years. He works at a lot of the North Texas hospitals like Presby Plano, Rockwall, McKinney, things like that. And I will strive to learn to heal and aid those in need and treat all I encounter with a high level of professionalism. So for me, it's kind of all about just giving back. That's what I really want to do. I want to be able to help others, give back to others, and kind of change lives in the process. And what is anesthesiology? Because a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people think that anesthesiology is just like, oh, he's the doctor that puts you to sleep. Well, that's true, but it's a lot more than that. There's a lot that goes on behind the scene while you're asleep or while someone's operating on you that a lot of people don't know. Basically, the general premise of anesthesiology is just the practice of medicine, dealing with the relief of pain and care of patients before, during, after surgery. So the anesthesiologist is the individual that's there throughout the entire process. He's there before you go into surgery, during it, and when you get into recovery. And right here I'm talking about what is an anesthesiologist. Basically, like I said, they're commonly perceived as doctors that just send you and put you into sleep and wake you up when it's over, but they really serve more of a central role in the operating room due to their part in keeping you alive. Without the anesthesiologist, there would be no way that a surgery would really go on, pain-free or anything like that. They also do a lot with diagnosing and treating conditions during a surgery. So if something happens to go on that's unseen, someone has cardiac arrest, they go into shock, something like that, the anesthesiologist is the person trained in being able to care for that. And they also ensure that, like, if you get a heart transplant, that you're viable, as in like that you can stay alive during that whole process, of taking the heart out of someone else, putting it in you, various things like that. They're obviously experts in administering pain medication, and basically the whole role is to alleviate the pain that individuals feel. And really during the whole process, it's intricate because they have to have a special system in place for each and every patient, because nobody's the same. So one person could be heavyweight or overweight, one person could be underweight, and they have to gauge medication and how they treat each patient based on that. So it's not just like, oh, I can give a universal amount to somebody and that will alleviate all pain, it's different, because if you give too much, it could cause someone to overdose. If you give too little, they can still have pain. Okay, so for my career outlook, really why I want to go into anesthesiology is because it's rapidly growing, it's readily available. You really always need an anesthesiologist. The salary is nice, which, I mean, that's not like the most important thing to me, but it's a nice add-on. And it's always evolving. You know, you're at the forefront of medicine. You're always gonna need to be there, and a lot of the new technology and new things that come out in medicine are going to be focused around how do we keep patients from having pain, how do we keep patients alive longer, things like that. And really it's, you know, not as competitive. I mean, it's still a competitive field, but it's not as competitive as a lot of other medical fields. Okay, for my first research assessment, I talked about a thing called global health outreach programs, which basically global health outreach programs are programs centered around sending doctors overseas to aid in like third world countries, things like that. The thing that I found out is that many anesthesiologists, residents, and practitioners in general aren't aware of these kind of programs, and they're not given the opportunities to kind of go out and be involved in something like this. And almost 81% of anesthesiologist residents would be interested in being involved in some kind of outreach program if they were given the proper education or material necessary to get involved. And for my second research assessment, I talked about the effects of social media on today's medical professionals. Social media, with it constantly evolving, the problem that we're having nowadays is that where's the line where we talk, where's the line that borders what we can say in a medical, you know, profession? Where can we talk about patients? Can we talk about patients? Can we say this? Can we post that? That's the really big ethical dilemma, you know, nowadays, because now we're becoming more of a easily informed society. So it's kind of like we know right when something happens. And the problem with that is that we know when something happens. So when do we keep, you know, a really popular movie star's, you know, personal information safe? When do we not post this about, you know, the president or about this person's health? That's the big issue. And for my third research assessment, I focused on the effects of like professionalism. Professionalism is a big thing in the medical field. You have to have a high level of ethical skills and to have, you know, a good level of care and everything like that. And this article really talked about like guidelines, principles that are being implemented to help teach students not just about the medical field, like the science of it, but more about the ethics and about how to properly care for patients and things like that. And on my fourth research assessment, I discussed how substance abuse is a rapidly growing problem within not just anesthesiology interns and residents, more or less with a lot of practitioners, because of the problem that the medical field it's very competitive, it's very difficult, and it's also real stressful. And it talked about a lot of ways that we are going about to help students to not resort to these kinds of substance abuse and things like that. And then on my fifth research assessment, I talked about how with current changes in medicine, a lot of lower paid employees like nurses and lower paid practitioners are being trained for more specialized roles like that of a doctor. And it talks about where's the border of when there's too much level. I mean, there's that border of knowledge where you have to have a higher level of education, you have to go back to school for it. What's that border? Like, can a lower paid or lower salary practitioner do the job of a doctor. And that's the big change that's going to be happening in medicine, where to keep costs down, trying to train lower salary employees for higher level jobs. So with my first interview assessment, this was actually with my mentor, my mentor now. He works for a group called Metro Anesthesiology. Basically, they talk about, he just told me about the basis of anesthesiology, what it is, and then he talked to me about what's the difference between being an anesthesiologist in the hospital, and what's the difference of being one in a private group, and how that affects your job. And then for my second interview assessment, I spoke with Dr. Mark Margolis. He also works for Metro Anesthesiology, and he talked a lot about how the healthcare industry is changing and how it will affect future healthcare workers. He definitely thought real highly of the field, and he loved the challenge, and it really kind of spoke to me, and that's kind of what I want to have in a career. I want to love my job and love what I do. And third interview assessment, I talked with Dr. Roy Ivy. He also works at Metro Anesthesiology. He talked a lot about the impacts of college, what kind of things are good to look for, what sets you apart when you're going into medical school, what really makes you a good candidate, and things like that. So it was really helpful for me to kind of pinpoint where I want to be and what I want to be doing in the future. And then for my fourth interview assessment, I talked with Dr. Ramsey Stone. Now, he's not an anesthesiologist, he's a general surgeon, and he specialized in minimally invasive surgery. So that's basically where they go in and try to make as small as incision as possible, and to correct some kind of illness or defect or something like that. And he taught me a lot about what the difference between the anesthesiologist and the surgeon is, and how their roles kind of intertwine, and how one always needs to be there for the other. And then the different lifestyles of a surgeon and an anesthesiologist, where surgeons are more kind of you have your 9-to-5 job, you go in, you have an office and things like that. And anesthesiologists are more you go in and you work until you're done with all your calls. So you could be done at 2, but you could also be done at 6 or 7, or whenever everything's done. Interview assessment 5, I spoke with Dr. Kirk LeBlanc, and he actually works for a very large anesthesiology group. It's called USAP. It's one of the largest in the Southwest and in our Texas area. He really talked a lot about the ethical dilemmas that are facing the healthcare industry, like what's going to be the problem with how Medicare is changing and Medicaid, and how the Affordable Care Act will affect us in the future, and things like that. And just spoke very highly on the career, but also kind of with some caution to how things will be affecting future healthcare workers. And then for my original work, I'm deciding to pursue a product that would allow vital signs to be taken wirelessly. Basically, where you could attach a blood pressure cuff or some type of device to a patient, and instead of having to be transitioning between different systems, in the hospital, it would be one system that would allow you to get accurate and constant data between various patients without having to, go into their room and sit there and take their vitals and everything like that. It would avert a lot of deaths that's caused by sudden changes in patient health, because that's one of the top reasons that a lot of patients in hospitals die, because they have sudden changes in their health that are unaware, or the healthcare workers are unaware of, and this would alleviate that kind of problem. And a system. I would also want the system to be able to be implemented in new and existing hospital infrastructure, so that it would be able to be used on the largest scale. Yeah. So basically, that's what I'm looking to do. I'm starting to work on that with my mentor. He's given me a lot of great ideas, and I'm just hopeful that I can produce something, some kind of product that would benefit the healthcare industry. Yeah. So that's it. Thank you, guys.